Bam! MC is in the house. What's up, folks? My name is Justin Garcia, also known as Master Chim, and welcome to the Warrior Stream. If you guys are not getting my emails, you should be getting them. I mean, I say this every week, and I pretty much am certain that everybody who watches is already on it, but I'm compelled to say it anyway. MasterChimLetter.com, sign up. Wherever you're watching, whether it's on YouTube or one of the Facebook channels, the link is going to be in the description. So feel free to do that. Let's see what we got going on today. We got my man Jesse. What's going on, Jesse? Good to see you, brother man. Aaron, one of my agents up in Canada. Good to see you, Don. Hope all is well. Corey in the house. What's going on? Oh, snap. A Lorenzo sighting. My man JB, the other Canadian agent, who's making it happen north of the border. Good to see you, brother man. All right, so we got I guess before we get into it today, how cool was that thumbnail? I tell you, every week I plan the outline for these talks, and it's like, all right, what am I going to talk about? Let me organize my thoughts. Let me create the framework. And at some point, I have some working understanding of what that's going to be. And then I go, okay, let me think of a thumbnail. And then from that point on, it's about 90% of the time that I spend preparing for this. Today, there was a prompt I got from one of these. I belong to all these different like AI prompting sites and services, constantly trying to, just increase my understanding of what's out there and how to have better control over things. It's a trim framework, master the 24-hour cycle. The I is improvement. Like we got to constantly be investing in who we are. But they sent a prompt this morning and I modified it somewhat to have my face on it and stuff. But I was having too much damn fun. Big Frank, what's going on, brother man? Good to see you. I appreciate that, Jamie. I appreciated the thumbnail too. Like sometimes you guys, I don't know, with AI, the processes that used to take forever, if they were even, accessible at all, now it's just like seconds. And we have I think it's a very common reaction for people to be entertained and somehow think that the fact that they're entertained is also valuable, so it's like, oh, look at this thing I made. Look at this thing I made. And we're not unlike children that do that. Hey, dad, watch me do this. Or, hey, look at this thing I draw. And it didn't take any effort. There isn't any mastery and there shouldn't be any value. Yet we are still entertained by it. So I think I've given myself permission to be entertained by the stuff that I can create with AI. But I know that obviously, creating value for other people is not something that a large language model has figured out as of yet. But I definitely had fun making today's email. So, Stop Giving a Shit is the name of the talk. And, I've been coaching. Let me give you guys a little bit of background for this, a little bit of a backdrop for this topic, why it sort of rose to the surface in my head. And I figured, we could talk about it. I've been training fighters for over 20 years. Two on Tom. What's up, brother man? Good to see you. I've been training fighters over 20 years. And aside from being a fighter myself, obviously, playing sports my whole life, I've coached different sports aside from martial arts. And one of the things that is sort of a perennial obstacle in the minds of men is caring about things. And by caring, I mean emotionally investing in things that have absolutely no control over the outcomes they're pursuing. So they're trying to accomplish this thing. And their mind gives them all these different sort of boxes to put their energy in and resources in. And only a subset, a limited number of these boxes are actually connected to the outcome. But their brain connects more than is necessary. So what they do is they pick certain boxes that they throw all their energy into. And at the end of it, they may have never invested in anything that actually is connected to the output. So there's a bunch of different ways that I can go with this metaphorically. I went with the boxes for some fucking reason. But the idea of it is we never want to waste energy and resources. We're going to. It's inevitable to some extent. But the opposite is to invest the resources. When we waste resources, it is expecting to feel better, sort of an internal, output, or it's the expectation of an outcome that it's not connected to. The guy that does the rain dance to make it rain. Assuming, of course, that doesn't work, right? Let's just operate under that premise for a second. So you'll have people that they will waste energy and resources by putting it in places that doesn't alter the thing that's making them invest in the first place. The opposite of that, instead of wasting, is investing. And investing is, we got to make sure two things are present. Number one, it's connected to the output, right? Because if it's not connected to the output, then it's just connecting you to make you feel better, right? It's an internal output. So it's got to be connected to the output. And the second thing is you get a return on your investment, right? There's no return on waste, right? What's the ROW? Like, that's not a thing. Because waste is defined by the thing that takes your resources, but doesn't give you a return, right? So I think when people try to care about everything, it's hard for them to discern what are the things that are actually connected. Where are you investing your energy in a way that you're going to get a return? The guy screaming at the quarterback during the football game. It's one thing to have this sort of cathartic outburst, whatever. I'm also, like, in real time giving myself an excuse because I'm yelling at UFC fighters almost every card that I watch through the TV. But it's one thing to just understand what that is. It's another thing to actually expect something to change as a result of you doing that. I don't think that the person who's yelling at the football player expects the football player to change, but for some reason they do it, and they do expect some sort of output because they're not satisfied. I have friends, even family, who I've seen myself get, I've seen them get themselves to the point where they're depressed over shit they can't change. And I'm speaking about sports specifically. And I'm not talking about I lost the rent money. I'm talking about I can't believe we lost the game. How could they do this? How could he not make that shot? How could he not get that hit? Whatever it is. And people have this existential alliance with these outcomes that they've never come into contact with to begin with. It's like however you acted was never going to alter or determine the outcome of a game you're watching on TV. I'm going down this sports metaphor, I guess, a little deeper than I thought. But the idea of it is, if you give a shit about everything, it's very hard to figure out what exactly gave you a return, right? So I'll give you a business example. If I invest in 10 different ads for my business, and all of these ads have the same, call this number, and you'll get a discount offer in them. If I don't know which ad it came from when somebody calls, I don't know where to continue investing that ad money. I put a flyer up in 10 different locations. I left it there for a week. I got 100 people to call me, but all of the flyers are identical. And when they walk in, I never asked them where they saw the flyer. So I put up 10 flyers, I get 100 leads. If I don't know which one it was, I'm bound to do all 10. But if I find out, once I start tracking by asking people, hey, where did you see the flyer? Then 90% comes from one spot and the other 10% comes from another spot. Well, now I have 2 spots that I can continue in. The other 8 aren't producing. So if you give a shit about everything, you don't know what actually is affecting the outcomes that you're enjoying. So what I'm advocating for is doing the opposite. It's almost like the, what do they call that? What's the diet when you stop eating a whole bunch of stuff? The elimination diet, right? I am sort of giving you an elimination diet for the investment of your concern. If you stop giving a shit about stuff, what will happen is at some point you'll start developing a deficiency in the areas that matter. Stop giving a shit about eating. At some point, you're going to be starving. If you're not starving, you get past that, you're going to start, becoming sickly and unhealthy at some point, right? We can debate how long that's going to be. If you stop paying your rent, I don't give a shit about paying my rent. You'll start getting notices. It'll escalate. So the deficiency from the things that actually matter will start to produce some sort of escalation, some sort of consequence. But if you stop watching sports tomorrow, there's absolutely no negative thing that's going to happen to your life. Now, that doesn't mean that it doesn't add value in some way. What I'm saying is that the value it creates is not existentially based. You don't need that value, in other words. I'll give you another example. People, a lot of artists that are losing their shit over AI. And I've spoken about this before, but here's the thing. If AI could replace you, then basically what you're doing is not as valuable as you thought it was. What I could create, no robot or computer program could replicate. Yeah, well, turns out you were wrong, right? We used to think that about calculators and word processors, and there's all these innovative sort of milestones in technological evolution that basically took a whole nother industry and was like, yep, turns out you guys are fucking expendable too. I've been saying this for a while, guys. It's why alliances are so important. You know what a computer can't do yet, right? Because I'm willing to add that to everything I'm going to say right now. But what a computer can't do right now is actually be your friend in the real world. A computer can't exist with you in the three-dimensional space of reality and navigate its obstacles and its unknowns, right? Its unpredictability. A computer can't do that with you yet. A computer can't build an alliance with you that can be relied upon when you can't even rely on yourself in the real world. Computer can do a whole bunch of other things, and more things are going to become automated. I see the direction where some of this technology is, and I'm far from this innovative, AI mind, like full disclosure, if there's any confusion. In case you guys confused me for an AI technological genius, not me at all. But I do spend some time looking and watching and observing, where the trajectory of what we're doing technologically is impacting society and how people act. In a group chat that I have with a couple of buddies of mine, one of the guys sent a video of some Arab dude somewhere, like on the side of a mountain, like it's a little ledge. Like these countries, they have these little ledges, and you see people walking on, and you're like, this is fucking insanity. And the guy was on it, and he was like doing a selfie video, and he was wearing rollerblades on this side of a mountain like ledge, and hundreds of feet, if not thousands of feet, that he would fall if he fell off the ledge. And he's speaking Arabic, so I don't know what the fuck he's saying, but you don't need to speak Arabic to know the guy's a fucking moron. And you ask yourself, well, why is he doing this? Why is this guy wearing rollerblades on the side of a mountain on a ledge that's about 3 feet wide, that if he were to fall, he'd be dead? Like with no uncertainty, he'd be dead if he fell. But he has a selfie stick, so his long selfie stick with a video, I guess he's taking with his phone, and he's sitting there like rambling on, being like retarded. I don't fucking know like what he was saying. Like I said, he's probably saying something that he thought was entertaining. Well, why is he doing this? He's doing this because the artificiality of how we operate nowadays has created an attention economy that has transcended value and has become pure entertainment. So if he could just keep your attention, he is going to get the feedback loop that he is valuable. Now, what's that feedback loop? I would say it's valuable only in the aquariums in which it was constructed, but he gets a lot of likes. He gets a lot of follows. He gets a bunch of engagement and comments. He gets the friends. He gets the mentions. He gets all the things that these artificial environments have installed to incentivize us to conform. Like there are kids who have killed themselves because they were being cyberbullied. Just think about how ridiculous that is. Now, I don't want to piss off too many people, but any kid that kills himself because they're cyberbullied, is not really made of great stock. That was the nice version in my head. It didn't come out like that, right? But here's the thing. If you raise a child that is so fragile that people that they don't even know exist can say things on a computer screen and they want to end their lives as a result, like you are not anchoring your kids to some real shit. So what's the alternative? Well, the alternative is like look back 100 years. And how did people exist then? How did they interact? Who were they trying to impress? Who were they worried about? What were they worried about? What did they rush to get done? What did they ignore? And compare that to nowadays. And ask yourself, how much of it is I want to be accepted by people I don't even know? I want to get this thing. My whole life is centered around get this thing that maybe 6 months ago I didn't even know existed. Maybe 6 months before that, it didn't exist. The people that want the newest phone. Like I remember when you used to take pictures and like drop the fucking the film off at the little photo lab, come back 2-3 days, you get your pictures, you can't wait, and it's like a picture, and it's like, oh, it's all fucked up. All these fucked up pictures you had developed because you didn't know, There was a whole process. And then they had the disposable cameras. When they had the disposable cameras, it was amazing. You could spend like $10. You don't even need to have a camera. You have to bring a camera with you. You just buy one, or you buy a bunch of them. You hand them out to people. Still get the same quality of pictures. And it's like, oh my God, how did we ever exist without that? And then it became you could take pictures on smaller cameras, and then eventually cameras that are on our phones. Every single leg of the way, we were blown away by the innovation. But shortly after that, we just thought that, we're supposed to have that. And we started sort of weaving in our existence, our identity, our life into relying upon these things that just weeks, months, years prior didn't even exist. So how do we counter that? We stop giving a shit about the things that are connected to the artificial world. Like a couple days ago, I was having trouble logging into Instagram. And for a moment, I thought maybe my account got banned again, or maybe and I can't describe how the first reaction was, oh, fuck, what the hell happened? What did I do? And then it was, I didn't post anything crazy. Like, did I? I don't think I did. Did I say something? Because I've been known to say something. And then after that initial reaction, it was like, fuck it. If I ain't got Instagram, fuck it. I got to worry about that shit anymore. And then I refreshed the page and it logged in. But before I refreshed the page, I got to the point where I was happy that I couldn't have Instagram anymore. It was like, oh, as a business person, like it's kind of irresponsible to not have a social media presence. It's the only fucking reason I'm there. But if they took this platform away from me, what am I going to do? And it's like, holy shit. It was just an insight into the artificial relationship that I have with social media. And I'll say that, yeah, I probably have a better handle on it than most. Good buddy of mine I grew up with, fucking crushing it more than I am. He doesn't have social media. He doesn't know how to use social media. I'll send him a link every once in a while, funny stuff. We all send our buddies funny stuff. And there's some things like he can't see because he doesn't have an account to log in. And he'll say, just send me the picture. Or I'll send him like a post and he'll go, just email it to me. And I'm going, that's not the way it works. I can't just email it to you. Yeah, but it says I have to log in. Just email it to me. And it's like, oh, why don't I just print it out and fucking mail it to you? You get it in fucking 6 days, But the thing is, I look at his life, and it's so easy for me to go like, "What are you doing?" But if I look at his life, I could judge him for not having social media. But if I look at his life, happily married, great kids, like making great money, great tribe, in great shape, like where's the judgment? Turns out he doesn't have something that doesn't matter to him. He's not a business owner. He's an employee. He makes a good job. He makes a good job. He makes a good living in what it is that he does. But he doesn't give a fuck about the social media and all that stuff because his life isn't connected to it. So it doesn't matter. And it's like, wow, that's a fucking superpower. In other words, there are things that he doesn't even give a shit about that most people, their entire identity is wrapped up in. And the irony is so many people that are basing their entire identity on social media don't even rely on social media to provide for themselves and their tribes. Like it doesn't even pay their bills. Years ago, I remember I wrote a series of emails on the email list. And it was why you should not have social media or get rid of social media. I forget the name of the title, but the whole gist of it was the only reason you should be using social media is to make money or to connect with people virtually that in the real world. Years later, I would add research maybe, because there is a research component to social media that exists nowadays, if I'm being honest. But the whole idea of I'm going to make my social structure exist completely in a digital world. Like you might as well, print out a fucking steak and try and eat it, because that is not how you're going to functionally sustain yourself. And you'll see this time in and time out. I just recently watched what was it? Fucking Netflix. Adolescence. That's the name of it. Adolescence. I don't know if you guys saw it. Very impressive. Like each episode was shot in like one take. They did it was pretty cool. I gotta say I was impressed. But the subject of the show, I heard this thing was like controversial or was prompting a bunch of discussion. So I was like, all right, let me watch this fucking thing. And I watched it, and the whole thing is about spoiler alert, about a young kid who's accused of stabbing a girl in his school to death. And when the investigators start unraveling what was transpiring, it was that she was like calling him an incel and calling like basically cyberbullying him, and everybody in the school was laughing at him virtually in these social media platforms. I think it was Instagram. And even the police officers, like they didn't understand the lingo and the symbolism of all the emoji usage and everything. And so they thought that she was nice to him and he killed her. But another kid was like, no, if you actually know what she's writing, she's calling him a fucking virgin, loser, piece of shit, etc. So it made sense in that area. But you think about who's the boy that kills somebody. Now, this is fiction, obviously, but just as a subject to discuss, it's like, who's the boy that wants to kill people because of what people said in a virtual platform? Now we know what peer pressure is. We know what these artificial environments like school do in terms of compelling people to develop their identities, congruent to the model that the state or society or the elite want us to follow. Be a consumer, be popular, don't be an outcast, don't be rejected by society at large. Before it was like, don't get thrown out of your house. Like, don't get exiled by your people. One of the worst things that can happen to, members of tribes and various, cultural groups throughout history is to being exiled. It's like to be thrown out because you didn't have the protection. You didn't have the access. You didn't have the connection. You didn't have your history, right? So there was no legacy to speak of. It's one of the worst things that can happen, but that was a tight group of people. Now we're worried about, to the point of depression or self-harm, that people you don't even know exist are criticizing you digitally. Like these could be bots. There was one guy that one of my guys sent me this article. It's fucking hysterical. That some guy's like arrested facing like 60 years because he created a fake band, and then he created a bunch of fake songs with his fake band, and then he created a bunch of bots to stream the fake songs from his fake band. And apparently he made a bunch of ad money, something like $20 million doing this, or $10 million, whatever it was. And it's like he's facing 60 years. And I'm like, for what? I don't get it. Like he exploited the vulnerability. It's like you should reward him and then fix your shit. But it's like, oh no, he was dishonest. He was fraudulent. It's legal. It's against the law. He was being a fraud. What do you mean he was being a fraud? Have you ever heard of fucking auto-tune? Have you ever heard these people sing? Who's the fucking fraud here? Like, where's the line where we draw between real and fraudulent? Because conveniently, it'll be the ones where they get paid and we pay for it. Right? If we discard the whole fucking thing, then who are we beholden to? Who's controlling us? Nobody. Right? I remember one of the pressure cons. I asked, it was one of these conversations that we were having with the group. And I said, who here believes it's wrong to rape a woman? It's like, oh, wake up, right? Everyone was like, oh, everybody immediately. It's like, you get it's all these, I love having these social experiments, going with my guys. And it was a race to get their hands up. And as soon as they put their hands up, the next thing, what do you guys think they did next? They looked around to see, make sure everybody else was answers, right? So I'm like, all right, everybody here thinks it's wrong, and should be illegal to rape women. I agree. That's a good thing. But why is it wrong? Why is raping a woman wrong? And I called on various people, and one of them said, because it's illegal. And I said, well, thank goodness that this wasn't the first answer or the only answer. We got to it eventually. But the idea is, look at all the reasons why we don't do something. And at some point, somebody's like, and I guess it's illegal. And it's not that it's illegal in and of itself that compels people to not do it. It's that when it's illegal and you get caught for it, there's a consequence. So it's really the consequence, right? And that's what, laws are about. They're about codifying and regulating deviant behavior. But we don't need the law to not do the thing, to do the thing or to not do the thing. We have our own internal compass, right? Our moral compass that dictates what we do. There are some people, though, that they will never go against the grain. They will never, they haven't maintained the connection to the consequence. To them, they just need to know it's against the law. I remember during COVID, I went to a local hardware store up the road here. And this is a privately owned, like an Ace Value, True Value hardware store, like one of those. And I remember walking in during the COVID thing, and I didn't have a mask on. I didn't wear a mask, obviously, you guys know, throughout that whole thing. And one of the ladies that works there, who was otherwise a very nice lady, like never had a complaint, very cordial, professional, helpful woman otherwise. She's like, excuse me, sir, you need to have a mask on. I said, well, actually, no, I don't. And she said, well, no, yes, you do. I said, well, there's an exemption from this if, you have a letter from your doctor that says you can't wear one. No, I didn't have that letter. Right? So, but the whole idea is I just said, and she's like, well, show me the letter. And I'm like, I don't have to show you the letter. That's my own business. But the logic of it was, the reason I gave you for not having one should explain to you why this is bullshit. Because it's not like, it's like, oh, he doesn't need a mask. Why? Because he doesn't breathe. Right? Or because like he has something that, like there should be something equivalent to the mask as to why you don't wear the mask. But if you have a reason that's based on the mask being uncomfortable for you or an individual, like, so then, yeah, so the individual in that case trumps the rights of everybody else, which is how that should be anyway. I hope I'm making sense. But the idea of it was, I didn't tell her, I didn't show her anything. And she's like, well, you can't shop here. I said, okay, no problem. So what did I do? I went in my car and I drove another 10, 15 minutes to a Lowe's, a big box store. Didn't wear a mask. Not one person said a fucking thing to me. I got everything I wanted. Nobody said one word to me. And I left. You know, and it's like that woman in the other store, not a bad person, right? But if we were going to say she was a good person, we'd have to say good for what? She was good for following rules. She was being pleasant while following rules, but she was still a rule follower. Which means even though I'm somebody that's in her store spending money, I live in her community. My family lives in her community. She is more loyal to the edicts of the state, to the people who wouldn't give two fucks about her. She's willing to put the state in between the alliance that she and I are forming. That's what rule followers do, right? Big Jeff, he says, didn't that happen at Gaza's too? Well, now that you brought it up, Jeff, this is one of my good friends in my area here. Yes, I also got thrown out of the pizza place for the same reason. The guy told me, you got to wait outside. I said, for what? If I have an exemption, so I don't have to wear the mask. And he said, the owner of the pizza shop, he said, yeah, but you're making everybody uncomfortable. So, you know, and I remember telling him, I said, they're uncomfortable. So I have to go outside because these people are uncomfortable. And at the time, I was a little hot over it because my whole school was shut down. My whole business was shut down. His business was open. He was still making fat people fatter the whole fucking COVID. So long as everybody followed the rules, the guy wasn't standing for anything. It disgusted me. So I still haven't fucking gone in there. You know, and that's the idea of it is, who are these people? Like, you'll build alliances in the community. But unbeknownst to you, their loyalty is to the state. Their loyalty is to the rules. Their loyalty is to something that isn't connected to you. So now, how does this segue into the value of, you know, the topic we're talking about? Jeff said, and First Place Cafe. Yes, I can't go to First Place Cafe either. Right? So, Jeff, don't you have some fucking trees to cut down? Right? Yeah, so suffice it to say, as witnessed by my good friend and neighbor, there are multiple businesses that I'm no longer allowed inside of. But that's the idea. That's the notion is, it's like these people, they are not your allies because they've molded their identities, giving a shit about stuff that has absolutely no effect on their environment, no effect on their people, no effect on their individual outcomes. It's only affecting their acceptance by these other people, right? Let's get it's all good, brother. It's all good. Oh, that's awesome. All right. You got some comments here. Let's see what's going on. Two on Tom says, Odin is very driven by sports now. For the record, his son's name is Odin, right? So this isn't like but I've always been concerned by how much of his energy is spent following these pro athletes. It seems to fuel his own drive and training. So I get it, and it's a vulnerability in a general sense, but a way to go against that, I would say, and we've spoken about this before, is pick athletes that aren't alive anymore. Pick athletes that are old school. Pick athletes that your son could be, infatuated with their ability to do the sport, and the athlete's not going to come out as gay or come out or some other shit 6 months from now. It's like my youngest son spent his money, his saved money, on a a fucking a Jack Dempsey poster, like, was it Jack Dempsey? I think it was Jack Dempsey. It's all a blur. Um, but watching like old school fighters, old school wrestlers, people that, we can now, to use a little tribalnomics language, can be transcendent allies, right? They could be models of virtue that are out of our reach, right? Those are the ones you want to connect them to. The whole idea of old school anything has a connotation that it's sort of like rougher, tougher, maybe a little less sophisticated, but more robust, more anti-fragile, more capable, and that's the thing that I would do. Regardless of it, it's also, and I've always been somebody that has incentivized and advocated for effort, especially with kids with effort. And then there's a point of transition, like my 18-year-old now, effort is assumed. He doesn't get credit for effort anymore. Now it's outcome, right? And that transition you have to make. But if they don't take pride in their ability to do their best, because here's the thing, if you manipulate or trick somebody into doing their best, that's now their standard, or that's the expected standard that you have of them. So once they understand that that's what's expected of them, because that's also what they're capable of, now you could start driving that expectation on the outcome, instead of the effort. But yeah, like new athletes and stuff, it's a slippery slope, Corey says, I know of a guy who has almost 500,000 followers, making about 10K a month on X, who was recently demonetized, and you can tell it's eating him alive. You know what? Those stories are so, they're a dime a dozen. Years ago, when I first got demonetized by YouTube, I since got it back through no actions of my own. I just got an email like a year or two ago saying, oh, yeah, your monetization is being reinstored, or whatever. I was like, okay. Restored. But when that happened years ago, I had already started building up some models, some earning models, some money models that were connected to social media, YouTube specifically. As soon as that happened, it's like, holy shit, I can't fucking trust these platforms, and I knew it in the back of my head, but this brought it to the foreground of my consciousness when that happened. I saw a lot of guys over the years, too many to name, but who had huge YouTube followings, more than I've ever had, and they were making a killing. And because the subject matter they were going over was controversial, political, back in 2016, 17, the whole shit was thrown off. Owen Benjamin, one of them. Vincent James was another one. There's a bunch of people out there. Nick Fuentes still. I don't think he's allowed on YouTube. So yeah, it's like, yeah, you're making all this money in this artificial world. Just understand the fleeting nature of that money. Like, that money could be gone tomorrow. So it's really, it's like, are you somebody who is a one-trick pony? Do you have some sort of diversity in how you could provide for your family? And notice I say provide for your family, not make money, specifically. It's like, because what that looks like comes in different ways. But also, are you somebody that's addicted to the surplus, right? One of my models that I have on the Mastermind group I've shared is called the surplus matrix. And the surplus matrix is an approach. It's got some math behind it, but the basic approach is how we handle what we do with surplus, right? So we become capable, we put in effort, we produce an outcome. The outcome has usually a surplus if there's a positive return on what it is that you're doing. And that surplus, what you do with it determines the trajectory of your power. If you're somebody who, the guy who makes $500 a week and every Friday night spends, $500 on booze and hookers, or drugs and like that person is going to be on the hamster wheel for the rest of his life, because he doesn't understand how to leverage his surplus. Compare that to the guy who makes $500 a week. 100 of it immediately goes into some sort of, investment vehicle, and I say that generally, like it literally, like whatever, it could be whatever you wants to put his money in. He invests $100 and he looks at his overhead and tries to keep expenses to a minimum. Like that guy's going to be climbing a ladder, and he's going to be becoming more and more powerful. So how we deal with our surplus is also something that is in our control that can create a little bit of momentum, moving forward. You don't have to solve. It's like, you're a baseball coach and everybody's swinging for home runs. It's like, yeah, every time they hit a home run, you're happy. But the other, 95% of the time, even more than that probably, you're going to be yelling at people for striking out. Like the surplus matrix, one of my models, super, super valuable. Not only, in your ability to calculate what it's suggesting you do, but just the meaning of it, its value, philosophically, what it is that you're doing with your surplus in anything. Are you reinvesting it, or are you just burning it away? Corey says it was always the morbidly obese who wanted to confront people about not wearing a mask. Yeah, it was, you had the fake heroes and the fake tough guys, right? So you had the tough guys who were out there, talking to people who under no other circumstance would they have any threat, would they represent a threat to these other people. And they're using it to gain a little bit of status, and to feel a little bit, it's almost like, let me put on this power suit and feel what it's like to be powerful for a little while, because they had the backing of everybody else and the state, so, hey, you're not supposed to be here without a mask, or hey, social distancing, all this other bullshit that they made up. They could talk about it and they could actually feel like they had a little bit of authority. But then you also had the fake tough guys, and then you had the fake heroes. The fake heroes were the ones like the nurses that wanted everybody to like fucking cut a finger off and fucking sacrifice a chicken for them because they were going to work, It's like, oh, we're the real warriors. Like, oh, okay, you're the fucking warrior. Everybody's got to clap for you because you're going to fucking change bedpans and do whatever the fuck you were doing. Now, listen, don't get me wrong. In the beginning, we didn't know what the fuck was going on. All those hospital workers get credit for going to the hospital where they didn't know what the fuck was going on. But we knew what the fuck was going on very shortly after. But they liked the fucking hero label. They liked that. They liked everybody. What was it, like one time of the day, everybody clapped for like the fucking nurses. And like there are people in the cities and stuff who are like streets clapping for nurses and hospitals and doctors. Not like, get the fuck out of here. These people statistically you saw had less of a bad outcomes to COVID than normal citizens. There were a bunch of studies that were done in New York during COVID. In other words, them being exposed to it at lower levels of intensity consistently bolstered their immune systems to where when they did have consequences, they were never really dire, or proportionally much less than the average person. It's it was just a fucking nonsensical approach to dealing with a fucking catastrophe. Everybody lost their fucking minds, right? Roderick, what's up, brother, man? He says, we're also having the conversations that the athlete may be excellent at their sport, but may not be admirable in another way. Everyone has flaws, even heroes that are no longer alive. Well, here's the thing that I would say, and I agree with that. I would say that every single person that our children are introduced to is going to be looked at wholesale. One of the things that I was very adamant about introducing comics and like cartoon superheroes and stuff to my kids when they were young is I wanted to not rely on them understanding any nuance in these people's characteristics. Spider-Man, Superman, even Batman was a little bit darker than, the other heroes, a little bit more to explain away. But with athletes, one of the good things about the old time athletes is a lot of the shit they were into, we didn't know, so there was no social media back then. Right. So I absolutely agree with your suggestion, Roderick. But with kids, you got to dumb it down. As they get older, you can add a little bit more. It's like they have enough life experience to be able to maintain the context of what you're explaining. Get a 5-year-old and explain what courage is. At some point, he's just understanding how to mimic an understanding of what courage is. Because you at some point are going to reference something in the desire to define what courage is. You're going to reference something that they don't know what that means either. So it's a whole bunch of these, it's almost like a fucking a word puzzle to them. This and this is equal to this. They don't understand what each one of them individually mean, though. So you want to dumb it down for kids, right? Corey writes, I was confronted about not wearing a mask at a store that I haven't been back to since, but they coincidentally ran out of business after repeatedly being robbed by criminals of masks. The universe has a sense of humor. You'll see that a lot. You'll see people who they just don't get it. They don't get it. They don't understand. As people concede to authority and they start to value their own identity, their own virtue in terms of compliance instead of value, right? I'm moral because I follow the rules. Like, we just have to understand that those people are always going to be controlled. When we look at those people and we understand who they are, there's a certain point where we understand who they are. Oh, this guy's a rule follower. Or this person's a coward. Or this person is stupid. Or this, and whatever deficient assessment or label you want to put on an individual. Well, once you know it, anytime they upset you or let you down, that's on you moving forward. Somebody's a selfish piece of shit. You get angry at them. But then they do it again and you're angry at them again. Well, the second time, that's shame on you. If somebody reveals who they are, because people are all too willing to show you who they are, you give them a chance. Sprinkle a little pressure on them, you'll start to see people define themselves very clearly. But if you don't take that information and adjust the trajectory of your alliance with them, that's on you. The wife who gets slapped around by her husband for 20 fucking years. Like, I can't feel sorry for you. I can't do that, because if I feel sorry for you, then nobody thinks you have any power, because you obviously don't. As soon as I say, oh, poor thing, oh, now she doesn't have any power to me either. So I'll be the one to make fun of the lady who allows her husband to slap her around for 20 years. I'll do that, because I'm the only one that's going to tell her she has more power than she wants to admit. Right? So getting back on track somewhat, we have this idea of, in modern society, there are so many distractions. There's so many things they want you to care about. They want you to care about the sale that's going on this Saturday. They want you to care about the $20 cable that you can get for $14.99, but you have to do it by tomorrow. Or the holiday sale that they're running this 3-day weekend. Or whatever thing that they're creating and layering on. Remember, I teach marketing. I teach copy. I don't teach copywriting so much. I give people tips on copywriting, but I teach people how to market their businesses, how to market themselves. Like, there is something to adding urgency and scarcity to the presentation of your product or services offer. There's a difference between saying, this shirt is $20 and saying this shirt is $20 if you buy it within the next 3 days. And then it goes up to $25. Now, here's the whole thing. You want to be authentic. You want to maintain your integrity. You don't want to say something that isn't true. I don't believe in bluffing. Right? If just right now, I have a free group. And I have a free group and then I have my mastermind group, which is not free, obviously. I'm closing the free group in 5 days from now, or Saturday at midnight, whatever that is, 3 days from now. And when that happens, like, I'm giving an offer to everybody that's in the group now to upgrade, at a discounted rate to my mastermind group. But then Saturday, I told them I'm going to close the group. And if you want to join the group, the mastermind group, after I close the free group, it's going to be at a higher price. I'm going to do that. So yeah, I'm positioning it in a way to let them know there is a sense of urgency. But I'm not doing it in a way that is not authentic, that is not accurate, that I'm not going to follow through on. Right? So I think when people, again, when they look at who they are and what makes them have energy, what takes energy away, what makes them more powerful, what takes power away. It's like this is one of the relationships that they just don't understand. They care about too much shit. They care about shit that doesn't matter. They care about shit that doesn't matter. There's some people who they would never go to like a beach because they have to take their shirt off. And they don't want people to see them without their shirt. But then if you go to the beach, you look at all these people that you wish they would put a shirt on. The whole thing is, it's like they don't give a fuck. And they're showing you that whole notion is bullshit. You don't want to be the guy that's designing how he lives his life, how he impacts not only himself, but his family, his wife, his children, all based on a compliance to the expectations of people that he doesn't even know, that he's never going to meet. But that's what modern society is incentivizing you all to do. Like, I'll be honest, one of my struggles is how to give a shit about things more than I do sometimes. Because sometimes I'm willing to go without or accept something because I see it as insignificant, but it affects my people disproportionately. It's like to them it means something, right? I'll give you an example. I have a minivan, right? I love my minivan. Well, my minivan like 2 years ago got hit by a bear. I was riding and the front fender got smacked by a black bear. And I'd never got it fixed. Right? So the front of the thing. Now we have more than one vehicle, so it's not like, this is the everyday vehicle. I don't know why I'm even saying that is like trying to make it a little bit more normally accepted. But my wife refuses to drive that a lot of times because she's like, I'm not driving that thing with a fuck. So she drives the nice car, And it's like, yeah, at some point I'm like, yeah, I should probably just get this thing fixed. But it's hard for me to really care about these things. It's not something. So that's where my struggle is. My struggle is, sometimes I don't give a shit enough about things that affects people that I care about, right? Or people that are relying on me. Sometimes, and this is going to sound incredibly arrogant. I don't mean it that way, but it is what it is. Sometimes I'm just a little too strong for people and I have to soften things up. It's like, you want to give somebody feedback and I gotta be like the mother birds. You know how they get the food and they chew it a little bit, digest it, and they spit it in the fucking baby's mouth. It's like I gotta spit some stuff into people's mouths. I didn't realize I was going there with the fucking analogy, but the idea is some people they can't just take it straight like that. They need it, massaged and broken up into parts and given one at a time, and they want to be asked if they're okay as you're delivering it, and it's just a fucking waste of time. It's just a waste of time. Most of the time, when I'm direct with somebody, it's because it's just the fastest way to communicate. It's like, let's just not waste time. What the fuck are you getting upset over? But I will completely admit, by the way, I wasn't always like that from the other end. Sometimes people will be direct with me, and I'd be like, who the fuck are you talking to like that? What do you mean by that? Because I had a chip on my shoulder at the time. So by no means do I ever put things out that I haven't been exposed to myself. I haven't had to overcome myself. But this is definitely one of them. You guys, you give a shit about too much. Some things in your life you don't give a shit enough about, right? I always used to make the joke. I thought it was funny. I don't think anybody else ever did, but when I think of the starving kid in Africa with the flies going around his head, right? The one that they always put on the poster. I know there's more than one. But I always say, I don't give a shit about that kid, which I say for effect, right? I'm trying to be provocative to some extent. But it is my position, but my position isn't that I think he's supposed to be like that. It's that I care about too many things. I have no fucks left when I get to him. I've given a fuck about everything that's close to me. I've given a fuck about myself and my people, and those are people. But I don't have any left by the time I get. So I can't give a fuck about him because I got no fucks left by the time I get to him. That's the point. Well, in this artificial world, right, especially with social media, they will have you wasting your fucks on things that will never give you a return. And not only is that wasteful, but you're also, the opportunity cost of acting like that is that that time and energy and resource doesn't go into people who will actually give it back to you in multiples, right? Corey says that's why Jesus taught in parables. Imagine the Sermon on the Mount with Jesus telling everyone they were fucking up. Listen, if he spoke like that, maybe I'd be more likely to be a Christian. Two on Tom writes, a man's strength is proportional to how much he can take. Paraphrased from my man Freddie, I think. Right? Right on. Absolutely right. Absolutely right. Talking about Nietzsche, there's, his idea of slave morality. There's so many applications of what that wisdom that he shared can have. Most of the time, I see it in people who are so weak that they figure they're never going to be strong enough to overcome their obstacles. So they present themselves as some sort of martyr, some sort of, virtuous sufferer. Like, yeah, I could spend my life just, trying to make as much money as possible, but then, I wouldn't be real. I'd be just, being like all these other assholes. And, it's like, motherfucker, you don't have a choice. You don't even have a choice. If you want credit for not doing something, you have to start with the ability to do it if you wanted to, Somebody who chooses, I don't believe in violence. It's like, motherfucker, you don't even have a choice. By the way, violence still fucking believes in you. And there is something to be said for somebody who wants to be a certain way, but holds himself accountable in earning the ability to be that way. I can't, I can't. I've been fired from every job I've ever had. Not very easy for me to maintain a job. I have authority issues. I'll be quite honest. But here's the other side of that. If I want to be the guy that could, march to the beat of my own drum and do what I want and set my own hours and pursue my own interests, I better know how to fucking make a living. I better know how to provide for my family. Two of my sons I have on a business course right now that they're taking because of the talk I've had with them. It's like, listen, I want you to be able to pursue whatever you want to do, but ultimately you better be able to feed your fucking family, which means you got to learn how to monetize what you're doing. You got to learn how to make some money. I think it's a mistake, the people that put money on a pedestal to be worshipped their whole life. Rich people kill themselves too. Rich people get divorced too, right? Rich people are depressed and pussies too. Like, so money doesn't absolve you of all those other responsibilities I'd say we have as men universally. But I don't know who said it, but the quote is, money will solve every problem that not having money created. And that's something that we should all take to heart. Aaron says, a great one on giving fucks. I highly recommend give this one a listen. I click on it if I knew how. It doesn't let me on my thing, but I promise you I'll watch it after. All right, guys, we're at the hour mark. That was good. Good talk. I appreciate you guys hanging out with me. If you guys have not yet signed up for my did Two on Tom give me $2? Two on Tom gave me $2, $1.99. I appreciate you, brother. I appreciate you. My man's always supporting the cause. I appreciate you guys all for being here. I appreciate Two on Tom for being here and giving me $1.99. But a solid talk. I'll see you guys next week. You guys know the deal. So, as usual, brothers and sisters, pressure to power.